for the latest news from the world of radio every Sunday morning at 10:30 on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal and online at ckut.ca.
Welcome, everyone, to the International Radio Report for Sunday, September the 24th. My name's Sheldon. I am here with Jill. We are at CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. We thank you for tuning in to our show. We're here every Sunday with 30 minutes of news and information from the world of radio. If you'd like to reach us, several ways to do that and several ways to find our program. Our email address is radioreport@yahoo.com. Our show is live streamed and archived at ckut.ca, the website for our radio station. Our Facebook group is called International Radio Report. We want to welcome some new members this week. We have Bill in Iowa, Nancy, Umberto in New Mexico, Mark and John in Indiana. We thank you all for joining the group. It brings us to 948 members. We have our YouTube channel where you can go and listen to the program at your convenience. Look for International Radio Report on YouTube, and you can subscribe there as well. We have 870 subscribers. And our X account, formerly Twitter, at IRRCKUT. It's fairly new. We've only got 26 followers there right now, but it's only been open for a few weeks, so you can go check that out as well. You'll find links on the Facebook group where we can post them. You'll find them on the YouTube video and on the X account, links to the stories that we talk about on the show each week. So we shall get things going right away. Gilles, you have the first story, something good about AM and FM radio.
Yeah, it apparently says that younger listeners just as likely to tune to AM FM as they are to stream in-car. This is by Connie Thiessen, Broadcast Dialogue. Canadians aged 18 to 34 are just as likely to listen to AM/FM radio in the car as they are a streaming service, according to the new report from Media Technology Monitor, exploring in-vehicle and public transit audio habits. Cruising through the soundscapes, audio on the go, found that 2/3 of Canadians continue to tune in to AM/FM radio in vehicles. While radio remains the key source of audio entertainment in car, music streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music are popular among 1/3 of Canadians. Listeners aged 18 to 34 are slightly more inclined to listen to AM/FM radio, 60%, over streaming, 57%, with those under the age of 50 nearly 3 times as likely to listen to podcasts in the car as older listeners. When parents and kids are traveling in the car together, radio is the most popular source of audio, 57%, followed by music streaming, 31%. A sixth of kids listen to their own audio content via a phone or other device while in the car. Online audio is more popular among those who take public transit, with the 3 most commonly mentioned sources cited as music streaming services, listening to music on YouTube, and podcasts. Well, if I look at myself, public transit, definitely I'm streaming because of many things. First of all, in the subway, radio doesn't work. And it will be partly music, partly streaming.
Yeah, it's encouraging, though, that still a lot of young people listening to radio, though.
Definitely.
To AM while they can, before their AM radio disappears in the car, maybe. We're still waiting to see the outcome of that.
I would think that on the AM, FM, they mentioned probably FM is the big majority of what people listen to.
Yeah, I would think so. But anyways, it's a good sign here in Canada that people are still listening to the radio. Some news from the United States, from the FCC, comes from Radio Inc. FCC pledges to use a bigger budget to bust pirate radio operators. FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenzwersel gave her first budget presentation as chairwoman of the Financial Services and General Government Subcommittee this week. In her address, she praised the FSGG for adding the full $410.743 million requested by the FCC in its 2023-2024 fiscal year bill. The new fiscal year budget contains a 5.3 increase, up from $20.5 million over the current $390 million budget, which ends on September the 30th. In her message, she made it a point to discuss the FCC's crackdown on pirate radio broadcasters through the implementation of the Pirate Act. Backed by a $5 million budget increase, the initiative aims to protect licensed broadcasters by imposing stricter fines on violations and granting the FCC the power to take action against landlords knowingly hosting illegal radio operations. As of September 2023, the Commission has levied millions in fines and issued 24 notices to property owners for apparent pirate radio activities. In March, the Enforcement Bureau slapped a pair of New York City repeat offenders with the largest fine Congress allows, $2,316,034 for their decade of unauthorized broadcasts. Other pirates have been tracked down from Miami to Alaska. The current funding level aims to maintain current staffing levels for both the media and enforcement bureaus. The Media Bureau's budget is set for a 5% increase, rising from $25.7 million this year to $27 million in the upcoming fiscal year. Similarly, the Enforcement Bureau's budget is also slated for 5% growth, reaching $49.6 million. Rosenworcel also emphasized a crucial role in powering 1/6 of the U.S. economy and ensuring equitable access to communications technologies. So they have got the money to do what they want to do. They've issued some fines already. The question is, are they collecting the fines?
Yeah, that's a big problem. I don't think that most of the pirates operating have that kind of money to pay.
Like, what happens when you just say, sorry, I can't pay?
I don't know.
That much we haven't heard. We keep having stories about the warnings being issued and the fines being levied, but we haven't heard anything about the success rate in cashing in on those. So that could have a major impact if they were somehow able to collect on what they've issued. Then they'd have a lot more money to work with. But I can't see, as you said, many of these are small operations, maybe a single person running an illegal station. Getting that kind of money from them is just not going to happen. I think it's maybe a scare tactic.
More than anything, yeah.
That if people that are running stations see that, oh, wow, that guy got hit with a $2 million fine, maybe, we should stop doing what we're doing. It could just be that, but I just can't see them being able to collect on those things. We shall see. Let's hope they do issue some updates on the success rate that they've had, at least.
So we have a interesting story. The first time I saw it was in French in La Presse here in Montreal. The one we have here comes from Euronews, and it has to do with solar panels installed in a remote Arctic community to power green energy transition. So Norway has installed the world's northernmost ground solar panels in its Svalbard archipelago, despite the region being plunged into darkness from early October until mid-February every year. The pilot project could help remote Arctic communities transition to green energy. Neatly lined up in 6 rows in a field, 360 solar panels will provide electricity to an old shipping radio station, Hisfjord Radio, now converted into a base camp for tourists. The windswept archipelago, also known as Spitsbergen, is located some 1,300 kilometers from the North Pole and is accessible only by boat or helicopter, weather permitting. It's what we believe to be the world's northernmost grounded-mounted photovoltaic system. It's the first time anyone has done it at this scale in the Arctic. Another 100 solar panels are positioned on the roof of the radio station, which has until now run on diesel generators and should cover about half of the site's electricity needs and cut its CO2 emissions. In summer, the region is bathed in an abundance of sunlight, with a midnight sun that never sets. The solar panels also benefit from the albedo effect, the reflective power of snow and ice, as well as low temperatures that improve their efficiency. On the flip side, the region is plunged into total darkness from early October until mid-February, which makes it impossible for Eastfjord Radio to completely give up fossil fuels. Store Norsk is therefore also considering other alternatives, such as wind farms, to further the station's green transition. The move is motivated by environmental considerations as well as economic factors, with diesel costly to buy and transport, while solar panels are also easy to maintain and do not break down. The aim is also to use the installation as a pilot project to see if the technology can be used by some 1,500 other sites or communities in the Arctic that are not hooked up to traditional electricity grids and also need to transition to green energy. We want to make Eastfjord Radio a test site to get an Arctic proven technology that we can afterwards take to other locations like this. According to a study published last year, the Arctic has warmed nearly 4 times faster than the rest of the planet over the last 40 years, causing ice to melt faster and disrupting ecosystems. This has affected both local populations and the rest of the world, with rising sea levels and extreme weather events. So this is an interesting experiment. We would not think about solar panels in such a northern position, especially thinking about how many months they are in darkness every year.
Yeah, maybe they can come up with a way of storing energy to be used in the winter months when it is dark. But yeah, I'd never heard of this radio station to begin with. I guess it's probably a marine station, maybe?
Yeah, I was reading about it. It's a marine station that has all sorts of marine communications, mostly on VHF.
All right, interesting. We'll see if we, as you said, see if we see more of that type of installation going on. We could certainly do something like that in northern Canada, I would imagine.
Yep, definitely. So what's happening with our sun? Well, this week, a big part of the week under geomagnetic storming, we had a storm that reached G3 class level at some point. Auroras were visible across North America and up to Arizona. So conditions were really bad at some point. I could see all the comments on the shortwave channel where people were saying, not hearing anything. Anybody has an idea why? Well, that was part of the problems here with these conditions. I was checking out the FT8 stations I was getting. All I could get was stations from the United States pretty much, and there was not a lot of DX in there, I can tell you. Well, conditions are, of course, going to be up and down again. There were some solar flares that mean more coronal mass ejections that could actually give us more of the geomagnetic storms, including today, September the 24th. There's sunspot AR3435 that poses continued threat for strong Earth-directed solar flares. So up and down conditions once again this week. If things don't sound like they should be on the bands, it's possible that we're in one of those geomagnetic storms. But to witness all of this, the only thing that you can do is to turn on a radio and listen.
This is Gregory Majewski of Oakdale, Connecticut. You're listening to International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Now, if you're a subscriber to Sirius XM satellite radio and you've been having some difficulty with your reception, this could be an answer. A strange story coming via Radioworld. Surveillance camera attracts FCC's attention. A Maryland resident has been ordered by the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, to stop using a surveillance camera that the FCC says is interfering with neighbors' reception of Sirius XM satellite radio. The commission told her that if she fails to comply, she could face fines of more than $23,000 per day. The case arose last November when a consumer filed a complaint. Agents for the commission's Columbia, Maryland office used direction finding equipment and traced the interference to a 2.4 gigahertz camera at the residence in Joppa, Maryland, northeast of Baltimore. The camera did not have an FCC identifier or other required labeling, according to the FCC account. The agents left a notice on the door informing her about the problem and explaining the relevant FCC rules. In February, they sent a notice of harmful interference, telling her that the interference needed to stop. The FCC said the camera was still in use when agents visited again in January and April. Harmful interference to satellite radio providers such as SiriusXM Radio Incorporated is particularly problematic, as it can hinder subscribers from receiving crucial public safety information and emergency alerts, and undermines the Commission's ability to manage the nation's radio spectrum, the Enforcement Bureau wrote in a citation and order this week. It directed her to, quote, immediately cease and desist, unquote, from using the device, and told her to respond in writing or in person within 30 days to confirm that the problem had been resolved. My first question is, don't they have a little more clout than this? How many times did they go to this place? Like, first they leave something on the door, and like they don't knock and talk to the person and say, hey, you know, like why does it take so long? This started in November and it was still going as late as April, I think they said. Now, what kind of camera this is kind of odd. It's probably something off the internet that is not approved by anybody, and they've got it up and running, and it's causing this interference.
You know, this is part of all the junk that can be purchased online that, you know, like these cameras. You know, the cameras, I got 2 cameras here. I'm not sure they have any FCC or any approval of any kind on them. You just bought them online. They come from China. They're not super expensive. But in this case, the problem is, so they talk about 2.4 gigahertz camera. Probably it's emitting a lot of spurious images and other frequencies that are interfering with the satellites and the reception that are in much higher frequency range. But this is a big problem. I always thought this was going to be a huge issue where we're getting more and more technology that isn't approved in any way by either the FCC or any organization that actually looks for, you know, how much interference and how much noise this thing is actually creating. And I think it's a problem that's going to be worse and worse. We're buying all of that online. Nobody's checking anything.
Yeah, and we're talking, again, we keep mentioning wireless. Wireless means radio.
Yep.
These are emitting radio signals, radio waves, using radio frequencies. I don't know offhand what frequency range SiriusXM satellites use.
SiriusXM is actually using frequencies that are just below 2.4 gigahertz, around 2330 to 2340, 50 megahertz, 2.3 gigahertz. So it's very close to 2.4, so maybe those cameras are actually emitting some noise just below where they should be at 2.4 gigahertz.
Okay, so obviously these are creating some kind of mixing products or harmonics or what have you that are getting into the 2.4, coming out of the 2.4 gigahertz camera's frequency of operation. Anyways, hopefully it's offline now and the problem has been solved.
In our next story, we have Poland's railways halted by a simple radio hack. This is by Nikki from Gizmodo. The Polish Railways radio system was hacked on Friday and Saturday, bringing 20 freight and passenger trains to an unprecedented standstill. The hack, believed to be carried out by Russia, took advantage of a critical flaw in the railway's radio security system, with the issue reportedly restored within hours. An investigation into the cyber attack is underway, and the Polish press agency reported that the radio signals sent to stop the trains were interspersed with a recording of Russia's national anthem and a speech by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Poland is an important transportation hub that brings much-needed weapons supplied by Western countries and other aid to Ukraine amid the Russian invasion. And senior security official Stanislav Zalrin told PAP, "For the moment, we are ruling nothing out." He continued, "We know that for some months there have been attempts to destabilize the Polish state. Such attempts have been undertaken by the Russian Federation in conjunction with Belarus." Train services were reportedly restored within hours, and the Polish State Railways said in a statement that there is no threat to rail passengers and the cyber attack only caused difficulties in the running of trains. Radio stop commands in Poland can be conducted by anyone with just $30 in equipment to create commands using the correct radio frequency. Hackers could have allegedly used simple tones that can be found in a European Union document, he said. The document says it lays out the interoperability relating to the control command and signaling system of Trans-European high-speed rail system. But hackers wouldn't necessarily need access to the document, according to Olenik, who said the information is widely available online, particularly on YouTube. It is 3 tonal messages sent consecutively. Once the radio equipment receives it, the locomotive goes to a halt. He added everybody could do this, even teenagers trolling. The frequencies are known, the tones are known, the equipment is cheap. Another unauthorized radio signal stop carried on Saturday evening was reported the following morning, affecting the railway line between Białogard and Runowo-Pomorskie. According to PAP Radio, RMF-FM reported that a freight train driver railway station received a signal to stop the train. Once the train personnel confirmed that there was no danger, the traffic controller gave the driver permission to continue on its route. The Polish State Railways said in its statement that the reported train disruption from Friday and Saturday were carried out by an unknown perpetrator, and any train that receives a radio stop signal results in an immediate stop of all trains whose radios operate on a given frequency. Although the radio hacking is a simple process in nature, the operation could still prove effective and being detrimental to Poland's support of Ukraine's ongoing war efforts against Russia. When you're a hub of support to war-stricken Ukraine, you're indeed a target. You know what came to mind when I saw this article? Those cheap biofangs that we can get online that actually transmit on every frequency. I mean, every single frequency. There's no limit there. And I always thought this is trouble in the making. And I'm pretty sure they used something like a biofang. And all they did, they had the tones. They just, put the biofang, put the tones, and they knew the frequency. And the trains just stopped because they received the tones. This is where maybe we should have better communications equipment that rely on something maybe more difficult to imitate. It reminds me of the good old days when you could actually make long-distance call with payphones, with just tones, when you would put a recorder next to the handset. It's kind of the same thing, but in modern times for stopping trains.
As you were reading the story, it reminded me of these reports that are out right now, too. Walter Salmonu in the West Coast reported it to Glenn Hauser's World of Radio. There's actually a station, whether it's a pirate, whether it's a jammer, or what have you, on shortwave, frequency of 7032 upper sideband, that is each night playing the Russian national anthem on a tape loop over and over and over. There were 3 reports of it that I read today, actually. He was hearing it out in BC at 0353 UTC. Then it kept going. They went off at 4:15 UTC, and at 5:08 UTC, it was back on again. So you might want to check that out. 7032 upper sideband is the frequency. And it's I would start checking around 0300 maybe, 04, 0500 UTC if you want to try and pick up that. Now, what they're doing there, who knows? Are they jamming something? Are they, is there some coded message in what they're doing? Who knows? More of the great mysteries of shortwave and why we encourage people to listen.
Yep. Radio is, has a lot of mysteries. This week I made a video of this weird tone on 122220, where it's actually very wide, and in the background, definitely sounds, because it's the same pace as the woodpecker of the good old days, which was a Russian radar. There's a lot of mysteries out there when you actually start tuning around I have no idea what you're going to come across.
Yeah, and like you said, with these radios that are little transmitters that can transmit on, pretty much any frequency you want within the range that the radio covers. Combine that with free information that's out there on the internet, you're asking for trouble.
Definitely. At least there's one thing that I was scared of, and I checked. It can't transmit on the airband, because if it did, that would have been danger in progress.
No doubt about that. That's for sure.
But still, it transmits on VHF, UHF frequencies everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You can transmit over a police frequency or whatever with these.
Yeah, and different frequency ranges, the same frequency range can be used for different things in different parts of the world too. So, depending on where that radio is being used, it may be interfering with things totally different than if you tried to do it here.
Yep.
So, it's really, really dangerous stuff out there, and nobody's really controlling any of that.
No, definitely.
These are inexpensive radios. They're available on the internet, and there's nobody stopping them whatsoever.
No, and they're technically illegal. I'm pretty sure you cannot really own one of those according to regulations because of its frequency range that it's operating on. So we have upcoming ham radio contests.
We have a couple for the upcoming weekend. The first one is the Worked All Provinces of China DX contest. 0600 Zulu September 30th to 0559 Zulu October the 1st. It's organized by the Mulan DX Club. The objective is for amateurs around the world to work any other amateurs during the 24-hour contest period while contacting as many as possible with amateurs in Chinese provinces, municipal cities, autonomous regions, and special administration regions is encouraged. The bands are 80 through 10 meters, but it is CW only. So if you're into CW, you might want to check that out. There's not a lot of activity, particularly on CW and phone out of China. You said there's quite a bit of FT8 from time to time, but this one will be in CW.
And there's the Peanut Power QRP Sprint, 2200 hours Zulu to 2359 Zulu, October 1st, organized by the North Georgia QRP Club, 80-40-20. It's CW and SSB, QRP only, which means low power. And I just can't believe when I read October 1st, we're already there.
It's scary how fast it's going. Definitely coming into DX season. We changed the clocks when it's late October, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around Halloween.
Yeah, so that always gives us those long darkness periods, and already the days are getting shorter. So it opens up the DX windows a lot earlier and for longer periods of time. And the further north you are, of course, the quicker those things happen. So
we changed our clocks
check it out.
November 5th.
Oh, it's into November this year. Okay. Yeah. Well, you'll be noticing the change in amount of daylight. We're already noticing it. I notice it particularly in the morning. You wake up and it's dark and you think, oh, wow, it's like I must be waking up in the middle of the night, and you get up and it's 6 o'clock, 6:30. Still a bit of darkness out there. So anyways, check it out. Always something interesting to find out there on the radio. Tune around. Let us know if you come across anything interesting. You can reach us by email, radioreport@yahoo.com, or put messages on our Facebook group, which is International Radio Report. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you again next Sunday with our next edition of the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Radio Polonia. Radio Polonia.
This is the English language stream of Radio Poland, the external service of Polish radio coming to you from Warsaw. Follow our 24-hour webcast on radiopoland.pl. Listen on the go using the Polskie